When I bought the house on Sycamore Lane, all I wanted was silence. Real silence. The kind that comes after a lifetime of noise you never asked for and can finally walk away from. I'd done my time in the army. 24 years, Kandahar, the Balkans, Fallujah. Enough chaos for one lifetime. You know what I mean? So I figured I'd earned a few quiet mornings with my coffee, some tomatoes in the garden, maybe the distant sound of kids riding bikes, but nothing louder than that. No sirens, no orders, no surprise fireworks. For a while, it was everything I hoped for. Picture-perfect neighborhood, split-level homes with flags on the mailboxes, people waving whether they knew your name or not. The kind of peace that makes you let out a breath you didn't even know you'd been holding. Sure, there was an HOA, but they mostly sent newsletters about leash laws and what color you could paint your fence. Rules never bothered me. Hell, after the military, what's another rule or two as long as they're fair? But that was before the shift. Third year in, I get this envelope in the mailbox, official HOA letterhead, all proper and polite, talking about boundary adjustments and upcoming improvements for the good of the community. No details, just this thick cloud of vagueness that makes the hair on your neck stand up. I dug out my old land plat, checked my fence, my shed, every inch. Everything matched. I told myself it was probably nothing, just boilerplate stuff they send everyone. Then the real trouble started. Woke up one morning to the sound of trucks, men in neon vests spray painting bright X's along my property line, hammering stakes into the dirt like they own the place. When I asked what they were doing, the guy with the clipboard just grunted, surveying for the new clubhouse, board approved. I tried to keep calm. Lot 47B is mine, I said. Not anymore, he replied, barely looking up. That was the first time I saw Sandra Given, our HOA president, standing by her Lexus at the end of the street, arms crossed, watching. When I confronted her, she smiled like a teacher dealing with a slow kid. You got the notice, didn't you? Board voted on it last quarter. This land's common area now. She waved off my protest about the deed. Old survey was never filed right. We're correcting it. And the look on her face, God, it was like she enjoyed it. I walked away that night more angry than I'd been in years, sat at my kitchen table, and scrawled across a legal pad. What they don't know about me. Because they didn't, not yet. Next morning, I'm out before sunrise pacing the boundary, pulling up the stakes they left like war trophies. I checked my deed again, then the county GIS site. My lot was suddenly smaller, lopped off at the bottom, marked for municipal use. My stomach dropped. Someone had gotten into the records, changed them without so much as a phone call. That afternoon, I went to the county clerk's office, played the confused old vet looking for paperwork, and sure enough, 3 months ago, the HOA had filed a boundary correction. No signature from me, just a board resolution with Sandra's name and 2 others, one of whom, Elizabeth Shore, I'd never even met. The language was slippery as a greased eel. Passive consent from the homeowner. Meaning, if you don't object in time, it's as good as agreeing. That's not how the law works, but it's how they counted on people not knowing better. I dug deeper, tracked down the zoning officer, Steve Davis, nervous guy, the type who's seen too many angry homeowners. They fast-tracked it, he admitted. Usually takes months, but this flew through in 3 weeks. I started putting the pieces together. I needed more. So I went to my old friend Mason. Used to be with the DA, now a real estate attorney. He flipped through my papers, let out a low whistle. They played you, Marcus, he said. You might have a case, but it'll be a war. And I thought, yeah, well, I've seen a few of those. Days later, they brought in the heavy equipment. Excavators, dump trucks, guys with clipboards waving work orders around like shields. I ran out yelling, "This is my land." The foreman shrugged. "We're just following the paperwork, sir." I pulled out my laminated plat map. "Yeah, I keep it on my fridge now," and told him, "You're digging on disputed property." That's when Sandra showed up again, all business, no apology. "We're within our rights, Marcus. Until there's a ruling, the project goes on." I stared at her. "You're digging up my dog's grave, Sandra." She barely flinched. "That's unfortunate," she said. I snapped, dropped to my knees right there in the fresh-turned dirt, started digging with my hands. Mud, roots, blood under my nails, until I felt the box I'd buried Murphy in, wrapped in my wife's hospice blanket. When I pulled it out, the construction crew froze. One guy filmed it, Another lit a cigarette. I looked up at Sandra. Dirt streaked across my face. You wanted a war? You got one. That afternoon, I documented everything. Photos, videos, measurements, police report. HOA complaints might be a joke to some, but when you mention a burial site, even the desk sergeant pays attention. I filed for a legal injunction. But the best part? That video of me digging. Neighbor kid filmed it from across the street and posted it online. It went viral, at least in our zip code. Suddenly, people started talking. The board ran on secrecy and fear. Fines, letters, threats behind closed doors. But now, folks were whispering at the dog park, at the grocery store. Then came Arjun, my neighbor 3 houses down. Never said more than a howdy before. He knocked on my door late one night, said quietly, "They did something like that to me last year." We started comparing notes. Turns out there were more of us. People fined, bullied, threatened, all convinced they were the only ones. We started meeting in my living room, piecing together a pattern. I took it to the next HOA meeting, room packed, tension so thick you could cut it. I laid out the evidence, altered boundaries, forged votes, fake signatures. Sandra tried to shut me down, but this time, people spoke up. What about my fine? My denied mailbox request? My yard inspection at midnight? The silence broke like a dam. They couldn't contain it anymore. That's when I went full army mode. We called ourselves the Quiet Committee, folks who'd kept their heads down too long. I dug into county records, found out the treasurer, Elizabeth Shore, wasn't just unknown. She didn't exist in any public database, not a resident, not even a voter. Contractor payments traced to board members' relatives. Ghost companies maintaining flower beds no one ever saw. We put it all together, charts, copies, timelines. Arjun and I started going door to door. People were ready to listen now. A few weeks later, we forced a special election. The board fought dirty, cease and desist letters, accusations of harassment, demands to shut down our website. Mason, my lawyer, just grinned. Means they're scared. Our support tripled overnight. The day of the vote, people lined up, quiet but determined, casting their ballots like it mattered. And this time, it did. When the dust settled, Sandra and Ron were gone. The ghost treasurer was officially disqualified. The Clubhouse project, that concrete monument to their arrogance, was scrapped. My property, Murphy's grave, my wife's sunflowers, the fence I rebuilt, restored to my name, officially. The city found the boundary change had been pushed through by a clerk related to Sandra's husband's company. Messy as hell, but the permits were yanked and my soil could finally breathe again. But that wasn't the end, not by a long shot. We filed for a full audit, unearthed years of financial sleight of hand, contractor payments to relatives, fines collected off the books, secret amendments filed without any vote. Sandra and Ron faced real consequences, charges, a public trial, forced community service, barred from serving on any HOA board for life. Watching Mrs. Penrose, an 80-year-old with a shoebox full of violation letters, testify in court was sweeter than I'll ever admit. The community changed. We rewrote every bylaw, held every meeting in the open, published every dollar spent online, created a real fund for neighbors in need. Nothing fancy, just helping hands. The old clubhouse lot became a garden, a memorial grove with a stone engraved, for those who remembered where the line was drawn. Murphy's ashes are buried there, new rescue dog Daisy chasing squirrels through sunflowers every morning. I never wanted to lead, just wanted my quiet back. But Clarissa, a young teacher, got elected president and asked me to stay on as an advisor. I agreed, but only temporarily. We built a listening council, rewrote violation notices in plain English, handed out HOA rights cards so no one could ever be blindsided again. Hell, we even got a bill passed at the state level requiring all HOAs to publish amendments and votes within 48 hours, 8th grade reading level or simpler. People planted flowers again, hung wind chimes. George, our 71-year-old engineer, finally got to keep his magnolia tree without a fine. That stubborn binder of his, stuffed with decades of records, became our blueprint for doing things right. A year later, I stepped down, handed over my battered binder. Clarissa ran the next vote under Murphy's maple tree. The garden is the heart of Sycamore Ridge now. Weddings, goodbyes, kids playing, dogs running wild. Every spring, sunflowers grow where the fence used to be. So, yeah, I started out wanting nothing but a little peace and ended up learning how to fight for it all over again. But this time, it wasn't for me alone. And maybe that's the best kind of victory. Now, I sit on my porch with Daisy, coffee in hand, watching the light change and thinking about how a neighborhood remembered itself, how a few stubborn voices cracked open the silence and turned a war zone back into a home. And if you ask me, that's the line I'll always fight for. What about you? Have you ever faced down a bully, HOA or otherwise? Do you think these rules are ever really about community, or is it just control by another name? I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below. Let's talk about what real justice looks like where you live, because sometimes all it takes is one person refusing to stay quiet for the whole block to find its voice again.